Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. I've been driving trucks for 23 years. Long haul, regional routes. Whatever needs moving from one place to another across the Midwest and South. I know these roads better than I know my own apartment. Every shortcut, every truck stop, every stretch of highway where the cops like to set up speed traps. My name is Holt Mackey. I'm 45 years old, and I operate out of Louisville, Kentucky, hauling freight for a regional logistics company. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. And after 2 decades behind the wheel, I've developed an instinct for the roads that no GPS can match. That's why I noticed when something was wrong with the maps. It started about 6 months ago, though I didn't pay attention at first. I was planning a route from Nashville to Cincinnati, a trip I'd made dozens of times. Should take about 4 hours, give or take, depending on traffic. But my GPS was showing 6 hours, routing me in a wide arc through western Kentucky instead of the direct path through the eastern part of the state. I figured it was a glitch, road construction maybe, or an accident causing delays. I followed the recommended route and didn't think much about it. But it kept happening. Every time I planned a route that should have taken me through a certain section of eastern Kentucky near the Tennessee border, the GPS would add hours to my trip. It would route me around that area like it was a lake or a mountain range, some impassable obstacle that didn't exist on the visual map. I checked multiple apps, Google Maps, Apple Maps, my truck's built-in navigation, even an old Garmin unit I kept in the glove compartment. They all did the same thing. They all avoided the same area. About 40 square miles of rural Kentucky, just gone from the routing algorithms. I zoomed in on the avoided section and saw what looked like normal terrain. County roads winding through forested hills, small towns with names I didn't recognize, the kind of place I'd driven through 1,000 times without thinking twice. But when I tried to get directions through the area, every system refused. Route unavailable. No roads found. Cannot calculate route through this area. I tried setting a destination inside the zone, a town called Denton Hollow that appeared on the visual map. The GPS couldn't find it. The town existed on the image, but not in the searchable database. It was as if the area had been deliberately excluded from navigation. I mentioned it to some other drivers at a truck stop near Lexington. Most of them shrugged it off. GPS glitches happen all the time. Roads change, databases don't get updated, nothing to worry about. But one driver, an older guy named Webb Callahan, with grey in his beard and 30 years on the road, got quiet when I mentioned the specific area. "Don't go looking for roads through there," he said. "There's a reason they route around it." "What reason?" Webb just shook his head and walked away. That was enough to make me curious. And curious is a dangerous thing to be. I found an old Kentucky Road Atlas at a used bookstore in Lexington, printed in 1987. The atlas showed the avoided area clearly. Denton Hollow, population 340, plus several smaller communities connected by a network of county roads. According to the old map, Route 118 ran directly through the area, connecting to Highway 52 on the other side. That route would save almost 90 minutes compared to the GPS detour. I had a delivery that took me near the edge of the excluded zone. After dropping my load, instead of following the GPS back around, I turned onto Route 118 and headed into the area the maps were avoiding. For the first few miles, everything seemed normal. 2-lane blacktop cutting through forested hills, the occasional farmhouse set back from the road, the quiet beauty of rural Kentucky in autumn. I'd driven roads like this my whole career. Then my phone lost signal. Not unusual in rural areas, but this was abrupt. Full bars to nothing in the span of a second. My GPS display froze, then went blank, showing only searching for signal. The truck's satellite radio cut to static. I kept driving. I had the paper map. I knew where I was going. But the road started to feel different. The pavement was older here, cracked and patched in ways that suggested decades of neglect. Road signs were faded, some knocked down, some missing entirely. I passed a farmhouse with an overgrown yard, a barn with a collapsed roof. No signs of recent habitation. I realized I hadn't seen another vehicle since entering the area. No cars, no trucks, no farm equipment. The road was empty in both directions, and the silence was profound. My engine sounded wrong in this quiet, too loud, too intrusive. I felt like I was trespassing in a place that didn't want visitors. After about 30 minutes, I saw a sign. Denton Hollow, Pop, 340. The sign was old, rusted, the kind of hand-painted metal sign that hasn't been made in decades. Beyond it, a small town emerged from the hills, a main street with storefronts, a church with a white steeple, houses on tree-lined streets. But something was wrong. The town looked frozen in time. No modern cars on the streets, just older models, 70s and 80s vintage. No satellite dishes on the roofs. No signs of anything newer than the late 1980s. I slowed my truck and rolled down the window. There were people on the street, walking and talking, going about their business. But they moved strangely, looking up at my truck with expressions I couldn't read. Not hostile, not frightened, but something else. Resigned maybe, or curious in a way that felt wrong. A man on the sidewalk waved slowly, the gesture oddly formal, like a greeting from another era. My fuel gauge was lower than it should have been. The truck had burned more fuel than the distance accounted for. I pulled into an old gas station with pumps that looked like antiques, the kind with rolling number displays instead of digital readouts. A woman emerged from the office, middle-aged, wearing clothes that looked like they were from another decade. "Don't see many trucks through here," she said. "You lost?" I asked about the gas, about the town, about why my GPS couldn't find this place. The woman, her name was Dela, smiled in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "GPS doesn't work here," she said. "Nothing digital does. Hasn't for a long time." She explained that the town had been off the grid for years. No cell service, no internet, no satellite, anything. "We like it that way," she said. "Peaceful, quiet, no connection to all that noise out there." I asked why the mapping systems route around the area, why it's not in any database. Dela's smile faded. "Because we asked to be removed," she said, "and someone listened." She invited me inside the gas station office while my truck fueled. The interior was like stepping into a time capsule. Wood paneling, a rotary phone, a calendar on the wall from 1989 that had never been replaced. Dela told me the history of Denton Hollow, or at least the version she was willing to share. In 1989, something happened here. She didn't say what exactly, just that it was bad. The federal government got involved. People from agencies she'd never heard of showed up. There was talk of evacuation, of relocating the entire population. But the people of Denton Hollow refused to leave. Instead, a different arrangement was made. The town would be removed from all official records, all maps, all databases. No roads would be listed as passing through. No census would count the population. No mail would be delivered. In exchange, the residents would stay. They would keep whatever happened here contained. They would never speak of it to outsiders. We became invisible, Dela said. That was the deal. We stay, we keep quiet, and the world forgets we exist. I asked what happened in 1989. What was bad enough to warrant erasing an entire town? Dela was quiet for a long moment. There's something under the old mine, she finally said. Something that was disturbed when they were digging. Something that shouldn't have been woken up. She wouldn't say more than that. Just that it was still there, still contained, as long as the town remained forgotten. The fewer people who know about this place, the safer everyone is. That's why the maps don't show us. That's why your GPS won't bring you here. I walked through Denton Hollow, trying to understand what I was seeing. The town functioned after a fashion. The stores were open. People shopped and worked and went about their lives, but everything was dated, frozen at the moment of the town's erasure. No computers, no modern appliances, no technology newer than the late 1980s. The people used cash, kept handwritten records, communicated through landline phones that only connected within the town. The residents were friendly but guarded. They answered my questions politely but vaguely, always steering the conversation away from certain topics. No one mentioned the outside world. No one asked about current events. No one seemed curious about anything beyond the town's borders. On the edge of town, I saw the entrance to an old coal mine, boarded up and surrounded by fencing. Signs warned of danger, of unstable ground, of toxic conditions. But the fencing was newer than anything else in town. Heavy chain link, reinforced posts, clearly maintained. Whatever was in that mine, the town was still keeping it contained. I asked Dela about it, and her face went pale. "Don't go near it," she said. "Don't even look at it too long. Some things are better left buried." I returned to my truck and tried to start it. The engine turned over but ran rough, the electronics flickering and failing. My dashboard displays scrambled, showing nonsense readings before going dark. The truck still ran. It was diesel, mostly mechanical, but anything digital had stopped working entirely. I checked my phone and found it completely dead. Not just without signal, but unresponsive. When I finally got it to power on hours later, the date was wrong. According to the phone, 3 days had passed since I entered Denton Hollow, but I'd only been here for a few hours. I confronted Dela about the time discrepancy. She nodded sadly. Time moves differently here. Slower for us, faster for you. We're not sure why. She explained that visitors who stayed too long lost track of days, then weeks, then more. The longer you stayed, the more time passed outside, the more you became unstuck from the normal flow. That's why you need to leave, Dela said, before you've been here too long. I got in my truck and headed back the way I came, following Route 118 toward the edge of the excluded zone. I drove for an hour, watching for landmarks, following the paper map. But the road didn't end. It just kept going, winding through hills and forests that all looked the same. I should have reached the zone boundary long ago, but there was no sign of the highway, no sign of the outside world. After 2 hours of driving, I passed a landmark I recognized, the same collapsed barn I'd seen on my way in. I'd been driving in a circle somehow, even though I'd been following a straight road. I tried again, taking careful note of every turn, every intersection. Same result. The road looped back, bringing me to the same point no matter which direction I went. I returned to Denton Hollow, shaken and confused. Dela was waiting at the gas station, unsurprised. "The roads don't let people leave easily," she said. "Not once you've been here long enough. Not once you've seen too much." I demanded to know how to get out, how to escape, what I had to do. Dela looked at me with something like pity. "You have to want to forget," she said. "Really want it. The road's open for people who can let go of what they've learned here." I refused to accept that I was trapped. I searched the town for someone who would tell me more. I found Jerome Stills, an old man who sat on his porch and watched the empty street. Jerome was older than anyone else in town. He'd been here in 1989, was part of the decision to stay. He told me what really happened. In 1989, the mine broke through into a cavern that shouldn't have existed. The miners found something down there, not alive exactly, but not dead either. A presence, a pressure, something that affected everyone who went near it. People started forgetting things. Then they started being forgotten. Miners who went into the deep shafts came back changed. Not physically, but mentally. They couldn't remember their families, their names, their histories, and their families couldn't remember them either. It was as if they'd been erased from everyone's memory. The government came, studied the phenomenon, tried to understand it. They couldn't explain it, couldn't stop it, could only contain it. The solution was to erase the town itself, to remove it from all records, to make it invisible. That way, the forgetting couldn't spread. Whatever was in the mine stayed local, affected only those who came too close. "We're the guards," Jerome said. "We stay here so the world can forget this place exists. So whatever's down there can't reach anyone else." The residents had paid a price for their vigil. They'd become unstuck from normal time, invisible to technology, cut off from the world. Some had been here so long they'd started forgetting themselves, their memories fading, their identities becoming uncertain. "Stay too long, you'll be like us," Jerome said. Part of the forgetting, unable to leave, unable to be remembered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt a pull, a gentle but persistent urge to walk toward the mine. I stood at the motel window and stared at the distant fencing, at the dark entrance beyond. The pull wasn't physical. It was more like a thought that wasn't mine, an idea planted in my mind. Come see, come understand, come forget. I fought the urge, stayed in my room, tried to focus on anything else. But the pull grew stronger through the night. In the morning, I saw other residents walking toward the mine. Not all of them, just a few. People who walked slowly, deliberately, their faces blank. They reached the fence and stopped, standing motionless, staring at the entrance. After a while, they turned and walked back to town, resuming their normal routines. Dela explained that this happened sometimes. The mine called and people answered, but they never went inside. "It's like a conversation," she said. "It reaches out, we acknowledge it, and then it lets us go, as long as we don't forget why we're here." I tried one more time to escape. I set out on foot, cutting through the forest, heading in a direction that should have taken me to Highway 52. I walked for 8 hours, keeping the sun's position in mind, maintaining a consistent heading. When I emerged from the trees, I was back in Denton Hollow, standing at the edge of town, exactly where I started. There was no edge to the excluded zone. There was just Denton Hollow, and the roads that led nowhere, and the mine that called from the darkness. Dela found me sitting on the curb, exhausted and defeated. "The zone isn't a place," she said. "It's a condition. Once you've seen too much, learned too much, you become part of it." The GPS systems didn't avoid a geographical area. They avoided a conceptual one. The zone was wherever the knowledge existed, wherever someone carried the truth about what was in the mine. That was why the town couldn't be mapped. Not because of where it was, but because of what its residents knew. But there was a way to leave. "You have to genuinely forget," Dela explained. "Not pretend, not suppress. Actually let go of everything you've learned here." Some people could do it. They walked out of town, forgot they were ever here, and the GPS systems started working again. Others couldn't. The knowledge hooked into them too deeply, became part of who they were. "The mind doesn't want to trap you," Dela said. "It just wants to be forgotten. If you can give it that, it'll let you go." I spent one more night in Denton Hollow. I walked to the streets, talked to the residents, learned their names and their stories. They were good people, ordinary people. They'd made an extraordinary choice. They gave up the modern world to keep something dangerous contained. They became invisible, so the rest of humanity could forget what was buried in the darkness. I walked to the edge of the mine's fencing, as close as I dared. I felt the pull, the pressure, the thing that waited below. It didn't feel evil. It didn't feel malevolent. It just felt vast and old and patient. It wanted to be forgotten because being remembered gave it power. Every mind that knew about it was a foothold, a connection, a way to spread. That was why the town was erased. That was why the zone existed. That was why the GPS systems routed around it. The forgetting wasn't just a side effect. It was the containment. It was the cage. I made my decision. I chose to forget. Dela led me through what she called the letting go. It wasn't magic, wasn't ritual, just a way of releasing, of choosing not to hold on. I focused on the feeling of not knowing, of ignorance, of the peace that comes from not carrying terrible truths. I let the details slip away. The mine, the forgetting, the town's sacrifice. I kept only the surface. A detour I took, some friendly people, a truck stop where I got gas. When the process was complete, I got in my truck and drove. This time, the road didn't loop. The forest didn't bend. The zone had edges again. I emerged onto Highway 52 as if I'd been driving a normal route the whole time, my GPS flickered to life, recalculating, showing me the way home. My phone regained signal, showing only a few hours had passed. I drove home, delivered my next load, resumed my normal life. I don't remember Denton Hollow. Not exactly. Just a vague sense that I took a detour once, that I met some people, that something happened I can't quite recall. When my GPS routes me around that section of eastern Kentucky, I don't question it. I just follow the recommended path, adding the extra hours, not wondering why. Months later, I was going through old papers in my truck and found something strange. A hand-drawn map, crude but legible, showing a route through an area I didn't recognize. A name was written at the bottom, Denton Hollow. I didn't remember drawing the map or writing the name, but something stirred in my mind, a shadow of a memory, a feeling that I'd forgotten something important. I stared at the map, trying to remember. For a moment, I almost had it. The town, the people, the mine, the thing that waits in the darkness. Then it slipped away, and I was left with nothing but a piece of paper that meant nothing. I crumpled the map and threw it away. The GPS routes me around the area, and I don't ask why. I just drive, following the path of least resistance, letting the technology guide me. And somewhere in the hills of eastern Kentucky, a town that doesn't exist continues its vigil. The people of Denton Hollow remember what the world has forgotten. They stand guard over something that must never be known, and the GPS systems route around them, honoring an agreement made decades ago. Because some places are better left unfound, some truths are better left unknown, and some sacrifices only work if no one remembers they were made. The zone exists not as a location, but as a silence, a gap in the map where knowledge goes to die. And as long as people like me choose to forget, the forgetting holds. The containment remains, and the world stays safe from what's buried in the darkness. GPS is avoiding a section of the map. I can't remember why. That's the point. That's always been the point.